Yes. With me, Irbad Ibrahim. Chooses your platform of social accountability, and today we are discussing a very important topic. Ghana's Chief Justice yesterday, addressing a conference, spoke about the need to hasten the passing of the zero draft non-custodial sentencing bill, so that instead of doing some jail time, there could be other alternatives for reform and rehabilitation, community service, being on probation, and a host of others. Today we have two important guests, members of Ghana's legislature who double as also legal practitioners. To my immediate right is MP for Gomoa West, Honorable Alexander Aban. Honorable, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
And he's ably assisted by Honorable Bernard Ehiafo, who is the MP for Akachi South and also a legal practitioner. Sir, thank you so much for making time. Honorable Aban, in our criminal code, what is the definition of a crime?
Good. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to our viewers, and good afternoon to my friend Bernard. If you look at our criminal code, I believe that I should even start from the Constitution to make it much better. Because the Constitution states that nothing is a crime, right? Unless that thing or that act has been so defined as a crime and the punishment for it prescribed in writing. Okay, so if based on that I should give a definition of crime. Crimes are the things that, or the various offenses that in line with the Constitution have been written either in the criminal code or in other pieces of legislation, right? And punishment for the commission of those acts have been prescribed.
Okay.
So those are the things that we will call crimes. But of course we have different definitions. Crime against the person. We have what you call the inchoate offenses, when you make an attempt or when you let's say I have not got the right word, but if you conspire with somebody, we even say that you have abetted, all those kinds of aiding, abetting, all those kinds of, we also have sexual crimes and all that. So we have various categories, but if you are putting them together and giving one definition of a crime, as far as our laws are concerned, crimes are the various offenses that have been written either in the criminal code or in any other law, and the punishment for it prescribed.
Honorable Ehiafo.
Well, I want to add something.
Yeah, you know, a crime is any egregious act that causes an upset in the social setting, because you are causing bodily harm to yourself or causing...
It may not necessarily be so.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Because, for instance, society frowns on adultery. Right, or adultery, let me put it that way, adultery. But if two consenting adults, right, go and share confidences together, even though society will frown on it, it's not a crime.
Okay.
So it will not necessarily be things that we do not approve.
How about things that are consensual but may have unintended consequences?
Before coming to that, let me also use the opportunity to extend my greetings to your cherished viewers. Not forgetting the good people of Akachi South constituency. You asked that what is the definition of a crime? In the simplest way, to put it in a layman's language, a crime is undesirable conduct, unacceptable in a society, wrongdoings codified in our laws as such. And then the Constitution clearly provides that nothing is a crime if at the time it is done there is no law that makes it a crime. So definitely, for something to be a crime, the wrongdoing must be in our laws as a wrongdoing classified as a crime. So if, for instance, what the sample that he is setting, that adultery is frowned upon by society, in terms of the law, it's a morality which scrambles before the law, because there is no law that makes it a criminal offense. For instance, in that particular field, you are talking about the sexual offenses, you are talking about rape, you are talking about defilement, and you are talking about incest. So assuming you should sleep with somebody's wife with the person's consent, it is not a rape. It's a moral wrong. But once the person has consented, it is not a crime within our statute book. Are you getting my point? So a crime simply undesirable conduct, wrongdoing in a society, which is in our statute book has a crime.
Still on adultery, certainly after this program, if one of us went home and found another person on their wife, the unintended consequences could be deadly. So if an act, regardless of what morality plays, what role it plays in society, may lead to violence, could we codify that as also undesirable and criminal?
That one would be for the state. By this I mean a collaboration between the executive and the legislature to come out with a law, because for as long as our constitution says that nothing is a crime unless that thing or that act is codified as a crime and punishment for it prescribed, it would not be seen as a crime. But if we realize that maybe it's on ascendancy and it is creating problems and all that, these are some of the things that would condition the mind of the executive to introduce some kind of law in Parliament that, look, we think that situations like this must be made a crime.
Okay.
You understand? Okay. Because I understand what you're saying. For instance, if I should go and find somebody maybe sleeping with my wife, okay, the unintended consequence may be that if I have a gun I may shoot or something like that. You understand?
Yeah.
So that would be the unintended consequence. But if, for instance, my extreme provocation is not excused, by this I mean that I also planned to actually kill him because of what he has done, but it was not at that moment, not on the spur of the time, right? I may also find myself on the wrong side of the law, right? But if you do all the analysis and that act is consensual, for instance, whatever they were doing, even though that's what caused me the provocation for the unintended negative consequence to occur, whatever they were doing actually would not have been seen as a crime.
And Bernard,
do you know why it is not a crime?
No.
If a person is moving, it's difficult for you to determine whether he or she is married, unless of course the person is wearing a ring. Today people put on a ring, but in reality they are not married.
Yes, sir.
So two things constitute a crime: the act and then the intention. So if having a consensual sex with a partner who happens to be married will constitute a crime, then I bet you a lot of innocent people will go to prison.
Bernard, let's not reduce this to sexual crimes. Let's broaden the scope of the discussion further. Bernard, we'll go into why we need to take people through rehab and why we need to put them under custody. But in terms of crimes, you've made an effort, both of you honorable members, to define what a crime is. What is the worst crime you can commit?
Well, it's been the worst crime may in the circumstances may be a murder. Or is it hijacking,
in the case of Ghana, I think the worst crime that we have is high treason.
High treason. Treasonable felony.
Okay. And then, so that could include attempting a coup?
Yes.
It's a treasonable felony.
Okay.
It's a treasonable felony.
Okay. Punishable by death.
Hijacking.
Yes. So then piracy.
Yes.
Hijacking. Homicide.
Yes.
And all of those.
Murder.
These are serious crimes.
Yes.
And what are the least crimes we have on our books?
That what we refer to as misdemeanors.
Misdemeanors.
Okay. What could some of the examples?
There are a couple of them.
Assault.
No, even indecent.
Indecent assault.
Assault is
indecent exposure. We have indecent exposure. We also have crimes like causing fear and panic, right? those ones are all misdemeanors.
If you insulted your tenant or your landlord abused, verbally abused somebody, is verbal abuse punishable by the law? Do you consider it a misdemeanor?
It's one of the misdemeanor offenses, but I think verbal abuse has its. There's a technical term for it. Offensive conduct. Yes, that's how it is called. Offensive conduct.
Okay.
You see, if you want to rank it, you rank it in order, in hierarchical order. Maybe treasonable felony. First degree felony, second degree felony, then you come to the misdemeanors. That is how it is classified. Treasonable felony being the highest, and then the misdemeanor being the lowest.
At the event yesterday where the Chief Justice spoke, a woman was brought there to testify. This woman had to feed her kids, and she went into a farm to gather the crumbs of the corn there. She was given a fine of 350 Ghana cedis, failure to raise which she was to do 3 months in prison. And so in our criminal code, what are the parameters used to determine how long you spend in jail based upon the classifications of crimes both of you have defined?
For punishment, we have things like warning by the court, getting you to sign a bond to be of good behavior, right? And then from there we have custodial sentences ranging from, let's say, 1 day to 6 months, and up to 3 years in the case of misdemeanors.
Yeah.
Right. So the judge has wide latitude to give sentence depending on all the circumstances, right? And exactly what the judge has in mind. Because we have sentencing theories, maybe we'll just go through them, rush through them quickly. So these would inform the judge what kind of punishment he should give. But of course, it's also guided by the nature of the crime. And so if it is a misdemeanor, it is either a fine, right, warning, being asked to sign a bond or execute a bond to be of good behavior. Sometimes we even have what you call suspended sentences, right, where you sign a bond, the judge will give you 6 months. If I don't hear anything wrong with you, that if you have not gone to commit a similar crime, or if you have not misconducted yourself, you are gone. If you misconduct yourself, you will be brought back to me, and then your previous offense for which you were brought here, I will then pass the sentence. All those things are there. Okay. So if, for instance, it is a felony, let's say first degree felony, and the minimum for that, for instance, is let's say 5 years, the judge can give you only the minimum if he wants to exercise his discretion in your favor. That's the only thing he would do. I was in court one day when Justice Chebafo, at that time he was in the circuit court. Somebody had been brought there on narcotics charge. The minimum sentence for use is 5 years, and then the maximum sentence I think is 15 years, right?
So this could be marijuana, heroin, tramadol.
In this case,
cocaine.
it was marijuana. This judge could see the remorselessness of this young man. He also realized that the young man, according to him, was just doing that to get some strength to do some.
Honorable, sorry, I need to cut you here. And the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice has as its Deputy Commissioner Richard Quayson. Richie, thank you so much for making time, sir. Hello, Richard.
Yes.
Thank you so much, sir, for making time.
Thank you. Welcome.
What has informed the decision of actors within the industry like you to call for alternative non-custodial sentencing?
Well, I think that basically in every society we enforce criminal laws to protect the society, and laws are made to ensure that people who commit certain serious offenses or crimes are punished. Now, some of the offenses that land people in jail, you will recognize that some of them are really petty offenses for which probably could find other means of addressing the offense that has been committed. I'll give an example. Somebody who, for example, steals banana on a farm to eat. Technically, he has committed the offense of stealing. I wouldn't want to put such a person in jail when indeed the person did not have the mind that he was going to really steal somebody's property to go and sell or to make profit on it, but only took something to eat. So even though the law will recognize it as stealing, as a people we also have a certain sense of fairness, a certain sense of decency, and a certain sense of justice. I'm not saying that putting such a person in jail will satisfy those minds. That is our sense of fairness, decency, and justice. So we are looking at how we can make the law more responsive to the needs of people, more responsive to society's needs, more responsive to some of the things that we could deal with in a manner that would rather promote the well-being of the community and the individuals in the community than just putting people in jail and punishing them. That is more of retribution than reformation.
Richard, there are two MPs in the studio currently, and they are legal practitioners. They've told us what misdemeanor is, and certainly some of the petty crimes you are talking about would fall under that category. If we tell people to do community service, sweep and then go away, don't you think that would encourage recidivism, the propensity for people to become repeat offenders?
You see, if you say sweep and go away, you make you look at it. There's no profit in sweeping. That's what we will be paying people to sweep. So if the person is going to perform certain community service like sweeping, like cleaning, like other community service, I believe that one, the person will be contributing to the community. Two, we will also be saving on having to make provision for the person's incarceration in prison, feeding, making provision for the person's upkeep in the prison and all that. So there are things that you can save for and also things that you can say against. But at the end of the day, as I said, it is our sense of what is decent, what is just, and what is fair that we are looking at.
Okay, thank you so much, Richard Quayson. But I'll ask you this final question. Currently in our congested prisons, and the Insaon prison has more than 300% over capacity currently, and prisoners live on only 1 Ghana 80 cedis a day. You are in charge of our human rights. You are with Shraj. What efforts are you making now that you want to ease pressure from the prison facilities through non-custodial sentencing? What are the remedies we have available to protect the rights of people who are being detained or kept just for the sake of rehab and reform?
You see, in the past, Tribe has been in certain prisons and issuing reports on their findings. And in the report, we also make recommendations as to how to address some of this problem. The truth is, until we deal with the problem at the root, we'll still continue just whitewashing or papering over the cracks. That is why we are advising or advocating for other alternative sentences that can reduce the prison population and still ensure that offenders are held accountable for whatever offense they commit, especially for the petty offenses. We are also advocating for decriminalization of certain petty offenses, which may not be serious in nature.
For example, can you give examples of crimes you would want to decriminalized?
I give the example of somebody who eats banana that does not belong to him.
No, but the one who weeded and then prepared the ground for the banana to be where it is today would have been cheated. Wouldn't you rather talk about other things that don't extend harm to people?
Who cultivated the farm, of course, this is the farm because they wanted to profit from it. So, to some extent, you will say that the person has lost. Can we find alternative ways of compensating such a person instead of putting this offender in prison? So, I'm not saying that Tribe has the answer to all the questions, but we are raising some of the issues for others to also look at it and see how best together as a nation we can work our way through this challenge. So the prison program has been a problem for us for a very long time.
Okay, and thank you so much. I hope there will be an opportunity, Richard Quayson, to have you in the studio, and Deputy Commissioner of Shraj. Thank you so much for making time. Honorable, please, what do you think about
Ibrahim? You will realize that in our criminal jurisprudence, the law creates the offense, and the punishment for the offense is also provided for by the law. Now, the example that you have cited regarding the woman going to somebody's farm and taking maize is an act of stealing, and stealing has been defined by Section 124 of the Criminal Offences Act. And the ingredients of stealing, they are all there. Now, by law, whoever commits an offense of stealing is guilty of a second-degree felony. And then the punishment for it is prescribed by the law. Now, normally, punishment is just an infliction or imposition of a penalty on a person who commits an offense. So when such a case appears before the judge, the law normally will give the judge the minimum and then the maximum. So the judge will have to look at the circumstances of the case in deciding a suitable punishment for that particular offense in relation to the conduct of stealing. The example cited, that I am hungry, I walk into somebody's banana farm, and I'm not taking the banana away, but I'm just eating the banana
as a
result of hunger. Even though permission of the owner was not sought in the circumstances, it might appear to be stealing. But if this case should go before a judge, I believe the judge will not sentence the person to imprisonment or fine. Maybe they may caution the person and discharge him. That next time, before you do that, make sure you get the permission of the owner of the farm. So the judge will have to look at the circumstances of the case in coming out.
Now, would the law have been fair to the owner of the farm? Honorable.
Well, that is why I'm saying that you look at the circumstances. You look at the circumstances of the case. Even culturally, in my tradition, where I am coming from, if you are hungry and you are walking along somebody's maize farm or a cassava farm, and you are put part of the cassava and you are eating it there, you are not taking it away. When the owner of the farm even comes to see you, he will join you in eating the cassava with you. It is only when you are taking it away that will be the beginning of your offense, or having regard to the quantity of the cassava that you have uprooted. That is what will raise the alarm. But to go to somebody's farm and uproot one stick of cassava, and you are even setting fire there to eat the cassava as a result of an anger, I do not think you will be sent to police station, let alone being taken to court. It is only when you are harvesting the thing, you understand, to take away. Because at the end of the day, if you look at stealing, it is an appropriation. You are appropriating the thing to deny the owner from the use of it. So we live in a society, and sometimes in society we understand some of these dynamics. Assuming you have a farm and somebody is in your banana farm just eating.
I mean, Honorable Aban,
yes, sir.
Your colleague mentions cultural values that undergird our administration of justice. Would you take us through how much of a role culture plays in custodial sentence? Historically, if you were brought before a chief based upon the offense, it would be banishment. Was there detention in those times? And how much of that residual, judicial system has found its way into our modern criminal code?
Thank you very much. I would like to finish that story I was telling, and then I'll continue from there. You see, he was saying that it depends on the conduct of the person and all that and all that. The case I was narrating before Mr. Kwesi came in, the judge felt that, look, this one, if I had my way, I would set this boy free. Unfortunately, the law says that it's 5 years minimum. So I have to just give the 5 years. I'm talking about the cannabis case where the young man was pleading with the court and said, you know what, I just...
He was a first-time smoker,
Not necessarily. I just took it because I wanted some strength to go and do some, what you call wala to walasa. Right? That's why, according to him, he took it. Now, the issue of cultural and some historical things that you're talking about, if you read into the history of kingdoms, even within Ghana, the kings, the powerful ones, actually had prisons. They had prisons where they could commit people to go and serve some jail sentences there. But as to whether these were in writing, of course, they were not. And whether there were prescribed duration that one could spend, that one I have not come across. But you see, those cultural things that he mentioned not necessarily define the sentencing, but rather whether we should even carry the person through the criminal procedure in the first place. That's where the cultural aspects play out so much, because I can assure you that there are many things that happen in the country that do not find themselves at the police station for the criminal procedure even to kickstart. So culturally, it rather helps us to prevent cases from going to court or going through the criminal procedure more than issues of sentencing. Because in sentencing, we may say that these are all importations from
the West,
right? When these were introduced and all that. I mean, if you go to the castle, the forts and castles, almost each of them has a dungeon or some kind of prison in there. So the cultural aspect, we should not think about it as far as sentencing is concerned at all. But coming to the call of the Chief Justice, innocuous though it may appear, I mean on the face of it, or simple though it may appear, the implications are many. Because you see, that would mean that we will have to do a whole review of
all the
criminal code.
Okay.
Because if the criminal code has given the minimum and the maximum, right, which is custodial, what else can the judge do? The judge cannot go outside of the law to say that based on your conduct, I know you have shown remorse, so instead of going for, let's say, the minimum of 5 years,
go and sweep the whole of circle and go home.
That cannot be. I'm sure we're all in this country when a judge feeling that he should just give instant punishment to somebody and let the person go off the hook, ask somebody who had gone to steal a goat to carry that goat and parade it through some place, right? In the mind of the judge, if I let him go through this humiliation, it's enough. I will not impose any sentence on him. But that's outside the law. That discretion, the exercise of that discretion was not judicial.
Isn't that what the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, isn't that what it is advocating for? That laws are made for human beings. So if there are ways of amending these laws, they are not carved in stone.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That simple though the call may appear, these are the real implications, with a huge financial burden, I can assure you. Because if you should call on our committee, it's likely to be our committee to go and deal with it, to go and review, and because they will have to, the Attorney General will have to now introduce a new bill, okay, revising all these punishments and all that. The crimes, they may leave them as they are, but the punishment, they may now want to introduce, especially for, maybe they will scale down some of the offenses which are felonies,
yes,
into misdemeanors, and then the offenses, the punishments for it may now range from caution through community service, which doesn't find space at all in our laws, community service, up to maybe imprisonment of a certain number of years, which may not be too much, right? And so if we are going to take this call and we are going to walk the call, then it means that it will start from the Attorney General's office or the executive, who would have to now decide that, okay, let us amend the criminal code, let us review the various offenses, let us now introduce new forms of punishment or lesser punishments.
Okay.
That's what
yeah, I don't know. Well, I would want to lump this up with the concerns you want to. We are very religious people. Even as legislators, you make laws, bearing in mind that Ghana is a secular country, but to the very core of the people of this country is religion. So how do we tamp down the punishment? Even God forgives. The scripture says when you slap someone here, the person should turn 70 something times. Yes. So how can we fit that in?
Ibrahim, constitutionally, justice emanates from the people of Ghana, and it is exercised on their behalf by the judiciary. And then the judiciary is to apply the law. Are you getting my point? So we have indicated here clearly that a crime is in the law, that this is a wrongdoing, don't do it. And when you engage in it, this is the punishment for you. And normally there is minimum and there is maximum punishment. So where does religion comes in when judges are administering the law? You are faced with a challenge, like in this case, an offense of stealing.
Like the story
the judge has a maximum of 25 years imprisonment, to give you 25 years imprisonment. But in exercising that particular discretion, they must take all factors into consideration in coming out with a sentence for you. I think in the circumstances like this, the judge can even caution and then discharge you. So they look at the circumstances of the case. So if we are talking about religion, religion is close to a morality, and when it comes to the law, the morality will scramble before the law. Because as a judge,
Parliament, and you confronted Alex and Bernard, aren't you being too hard? It looks like you've taken a very harsh position.
No,
because of the appreciation of the law.
No, I give you an example. Okay, probably it is the religious instincts of that judge that led him to say that, look, this guy, let me just punish him by asking him to carry the goats. Right?
And that is outside the law.
And after that, I'll set him free. You know what? He had backlash on two fronts. The first one, from the judiciary itself. What you have done is not known to the law. Right? And then, from the other end, were the human rights people. Why would you embarrass somebody like that? I remember very well. It was in this country. Right? So, I may be very religious, and then I decide that, look, I have to give punishment to somebody. As a religious person, I thought I could, let's say, forgive him because he has shown so much remorse and all that and all that and all that. Unfortunately, once I'm a judge and I'm applying the law, that discretion is not mine. The only room for exercising that discretion is to think between the minimum sentence and the maximum sentence. That's the only room that I can exercise as a judge. So my religious instincts play no role at all. Like the case I gave you, I even went ahead to mention the name of the judge. You could see that he was laboring hard under the law, but his hands were tied. He could see this young man who had just used one rule of marijuana for purposes of strengthening himself to go and do wallet. He has been caught, brought before him. He has actually confessed to the offense.
Yeah.
Right? Unfortunately, the judge in the circumstance could not tell him, young man, go home and sin no more. He couldn't. He had to just give him the minimum of 5 years. And you could see that he had to do that reluctantly because the law imposes on him.
Okay, in addition to that, law is an instrument of social engineering. It is supposed to provide an orderliness in a society. Else, we will not have any law saying, don't do this, don't do that. Man will be living in a natural state of war. So the law in the first place is supposed to be respected in order to ensure orderliness in a society. So the example that we are giving, it amounts to stealing. But there are people who are involved in stealing. Having regard to the magnitude of it, the judge can give them even 10 years imprisonment. For instance, if somebody happens to steal your vehicle, you understand, and you are faced as a judge to punish this particular person, you will not be giving months imprisonment or imposing 350.
Okay. Honorable Bennett, sorry I'm cutting in. We have the Public Relations Officer of Ghana Prison Service, Superintendent Vitalis Ayi. Superintendent, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for making time. Sir, I believe you have a very happy family, and this morning the whole family took breakfast. If custodial sentencing is meant to reform, why would you feed able-bodied adults meals that sum up to only 1 Ghana 80 pesos a day?
Well, the line is saying that if I get what you try to tell me, it's like I have a family that is happy, and this morning I had breakfast, and 180 pesos is not sufficient for breakfast, right?
And that is what you feed for a whole day for an adult in custody. Is that fair?
Wow. The line is actually bad.
Okay, Supreme, you could reposition yourself. I don't know.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. But I hope you got my question. Was it audible enough?
Yeah, I think it's like 180% is not enough for an adult meal for 3 square meals a day, right?
Yes, of course. That's the question.
Yes, it is not. It is not. I mean, it's true I have a family. I can't, my small girl can't even take 5 cities to school back. But that is what Ghanaians have decided that we feed with our adult prisoners for a day. So we need 80 pesos for breakfast, 80 for lunch, and 80 for supper.
Like 80, no. Honorable PRO, what can 80 pesos buy?
Water.
So why would you feed people? And for all you know, somebody is even on remand. A judge has gone on sabbatical and the person has to be in detention or under detention. Isn't that a gross disrespect for their human rights?
That is very true. The human rights of a prisoner is abused in Ghana. One, the feeding is nothing to write them about. They are just managing to survive. We are performing magic to put the prisoners alive. Their living conditions, their prisons are overcrowded by 52%, as the reports have it. And if you have that kind of pressure, you can imagine what the abolition facilities will look like in the prisons. Not even talking about communicable diseases, if there's an outbreak, the effect it will have on the inmate as well as the officer, and to a large extent his family and the general public, because we mix with them when we come back from our place of work. So, once the issue process is not something we should use to feed a human being. It's an abuse of the rights of the prisoner.
So what are you doing about it, Honorable PRO?
Well, we have decided as a service to augment what government is giving us to do the inmates by adding on having farms around to supplement what the government has given. We've also encouraged families, relations, to come with food and help feed the inmates. If after they're feeding on the 1 to 80% they be strictly, they would have all been dead by now.
I remember some time ago, Reverend Wampa was doing a media. Yes, he was asking us as Ghanaian citizens to contribute 1 Ghana cedi or so. How far with that fundraiser, and has that mitigated the plight of fellow Ghanaians that are only there because they've had a date with fate?
We have what we call a 10-year strategic plan by the Ghana Prison Service that was launched the time Reverend Wingam was the chairman to the Prison Service Council, and that was where this aspect of Ghanaians should voluntarily contribute once to the fund. Of course, some did, they didn't go far, but that project is still ongoing. The strategic plan is still ongoing. That's how come, as I speak to you now, we have a farm, and we have added a farm at Ejira. At the stage of completion, we have another one at Kokofu to supplement, as I said, and what government is giving us to feed the prisoners, to ensure that they get nutrition, they don't die of hunger.
Okay, Honorable PRO.
I speak to you again.
Okay.
We have a court at Nsawam, it's a high court that is operational to bring justice to the doorsteps of the prisoner. The Chief Justice will be commissioning a court in Kumasi on Monday, and one other in Tamale the months to come. So a lot of work is ongoing, but it's not sufficient. We need to see an escalation, a push to ensure that the prisoner is treated as a Ghanaian and not somebody from Mars.
Okay. Honorable PRO, for want of time, maybe this could be my final question to you. You say you interact with the inmates. In your interactions with them, of course, this punishment is meant to be correctional. Would you also be a proponent of non-custodial sentencing, and what petty crimes do you think that should cover?
I mean, that is how come 2010 we sent a bill to Parliament including non-custodial sentences, community service, suspended sentence, and others, including parole and probation, so that there's not everybody that commits an offense, no matter how quickly is thrown into prison. Somebody steals a tuber of yam because he's hungry, or plantain. Well, in my estimation, there's no point sending this person to prison to only maybe 3 years or even 3 months. When he could sweep, when he could take pursue rubber from Aquinas to Banker Circle. Those basic things that will not harm anybody. Yes, it's stealing all right, but there's a reason why the person stole. To satisfy a hunger, to satisfy the need. So those basic crimes, killing, banana, plantain, but we saw it. 3 years ago, somebody stole a yam from a kitchen. Just right there, he was boiling the yam to eat. He was caught and sentenced 10 years. That is perversion of justice.
Okay, and thank you so much, Superintendent Vitalis Aye. I hope I got your surname right, sir.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, spokesperson for the Ghana Prison Service. Thank you so much for making time. Alexander,
yes,
what do you think?
Yes, I think that sometimes some people get themselves on the other side of the law, not because ordinarily they are bad, but one event can even lead somebody to be so angry, and in the fit of that anger can do a whole lot of things, right?
Yes, sir.
And then the person finds himself.
So you are not saying we should turn detention centers into honeymoon areas, but they should be convenient and comfortable enough.
Yes, even for those who have committed heinous crimes, for as long as they are living, they still have human rights. They may even reform there. There are people who go to prison and get out of the prison as pastors and other things, right? But I think that maybe another time will come where we deal with the theories for sentencing, right? We may have to think about it and marry them well, because some of it is retributive, some of it is preventive, some of it is I think there are 5 theories that always play on the mind of the judge. Okay, so whichever reason why he is giving or imposing a particular sentence would be for the judge as he sits there. But I think that there's a lot to be said for what the call that the Chief Justice has made, right? In the US, I mean, people commit crimes, and you realize upon all the circumstances that, look, this person, if we ask him to do some community service, he would reform. And we also have what you call the parole system, where you are there, they realize that, oh, this guy is putting up very good behavior and all that. Then they can bring in an application, and his sentence could completely be waived and said, okay, he should go and all that. So we may have to look at that. And those things are conditioned by the law. If you don't have the law, no judge can use his own discretion to go outside the stipulations of the law.
Ben, we hear harrowing stories from ex-convicts. Some say they even sleep in tents in those prison facilities. So don't you think the time has come for your committee in Parliament to do strong advocacy that we ease the congestion in some of these facilities?
Well, we must all agree that the conditions at our prisons are not the best. There is the need for us to do a bit of improvement in our prison. We must admit to the fact that there are some people in prison now who are not even pronounced guilty of the offense. They are facing trial. They are serving a remand, or they are serving on remand. It could happen that at the end of the day, such a person may not be convicted of the alleged offense in relation to which he or she was charged. What I want us to do in order to start decongesting our prisons is not to be quick in remanding people into prison custody, because at that particular stage the law still presumes them to be innocent. There are limited circumstances based on which the person is supposed to be remanded. The person is supposed to be remanded particularly if his freedom is not curtailed. He is likely to tamper with the evidence available that will lead to his proscription. But sometimes any accused person who appears before the judge, you are remanded 1 month in custody. That is also creating the congestion in our prisons.
Honorable, do you know? No. Honorable, do you know a charge officer who is instrumental in getting somebody before a judge? When the prisoner is even put on remand, do you know the police officers have to spend from their own pockets to pick them up from the prison facility to the court?
That is what exactly I am coming to. Sometimes after remanding them in prison custody, they even forget about them.
If the investigator, for instance,
because it is only when you are tried that a pronouncement can come at the end of the day. But if you are supposed to come before the court, maybe after 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks you are not brought before the court, what happened? So there are people who are facing trial and they are in prison for years. Their trials have not completed. So those people, their liberty is just being curtailed for nothing. Now we can start the decongestion from there, so that we reduce to the barest minimum sending people to remand. Now we must also take a pragmatic step to revamp our prisons, because at the end of the day they are also human beings. I can imagine how human beings will be able to live on 1 cedi 80 pesos. But if you talk about it,
why don't you even talk about facilities?
They will tell you that the means is not there. So on this note, I will urge the prison authorities that they should not just keep them there. They should get them to work, so that at least they can feed themselves. Okay. As we are looking forward to getting the government to improve.
Alex, in closing, this could be your final word.
Sure.
So that Ben would also have a cherry bite finally. What are the quick fixes? He says immediately we should start decongesting by scrapping the remands of various detainees. What would be the quick fixes you would also propose? Because it looks like a tall order.
Yes.
Non-custodial sentencing may not come even while you are in Parliament, I'm sorry to say.
That is one. The other one, which is already in place, is going on, and thanks to the former Chief Justice, is the Justice for All program. There are a lot of remand prisoners. You go there, so Justice for All, they take judges to the prison. They listen to their stories. If there are basis for prosecution, the court will listen. If there is the need for sentencing, they will do that, taking into consideration the number of years you have already spent, right? If there is a need for you to be acquitted and discharged, they do that. If there is a need even for you to be discharged because you have spent so much time over and above what the maximum sentence would have even been if you had even been found guilty, then so that's one is going on. But I don't think that is enough to deal with the problem. But one of the other problems is that previously there were certain crimes that by the provision of the law at that time bail could not be granted.
Like rape?
Yes.
Rape is now bailable,
robbery,
right?
Now, even murder. Now, thanks to Martin Pebu.
These are bailable offenses.
He went to Supreme Court to challenge these things. And thankfully, the Supreme Court agreed with him. So as at now, every offense is bailable. And so those who have been there many years prior to the Martin Kpebu case, right? I'm sure as they decongest, but we cannot also run away from the fact that we even need to create more facilities because our population is growing.
Finally, in 30 seconds, there is some optimism coming from your honorable member and your colleague in Parliament that since the Martin Kpebu case, over time, maybe in the next 10 years, naturally, the prison facilities will be decongested. Do you agree? In 30 seconds, if you may.
To some extent, because though the Martin Kpebu's case is there, it doesn't prevent the judge from even remanding them in custody. The opportunity is there for the judge to exercise the discretion in remanding the person. The opportunity is there, you can apply for bail, but the judge will also look at the circumstances of the case and refuse the bail application. But in short, what I want to say is that law is supposed to regulate the society to maintain peace and order in our society, to protect our life and our property. We must all try as much as possible to obey the law, to go according to the law, to do things within the ambit of the law. When we are seen as a country doing things within the ambit of the law, that naturally would reduce the congestion in our
thank you so much.
Prisons.
Okay, thank you so much. A very spirited discussion. We had in the studios MP for Gomoa West, Honorable Alexander Aban. He's also a legal practitioner, sir. Thank you so much for making time. And we also had Honorable Bernard Ahinyafo, MP for Akachi South, and also a legal practitioner. Sir, thank you so much for making time.
And thank you for having me.
As a Ghanaian, try to know the law and don't fall foul of it. Stay blessed and keep watching GTV. Do have a good day.
The